It is a Monday, August 18th, 2025, from Chico, California, and over here through our portal, you'll see one of my favorite signatures of the universe, the lunar disk. In this brief summary sequence, I'll be going over a couple of topics that I've been covering lately that are quite divergent in topicality. One of them is the fundamental force balance of the universe, which entails subatomic physics and geometry. So that's one whole segment that I need to just go over briefly. Another is our recent excursion into the current scientific and religious confrontation between what is today called Islam. That is a good term. However, it's somewhat ambiguous because what's actually being referred to is an entire transmission of information. And it's not exactly what is usually thought of as pure science because of the axiomatic basis of the system, which could even be called religion. And that religion, however you classify it, in its instances, such as obviously Islam is the dominant religion and has been for over a millennium. That could easily be debated on philosophical basis. We don't wish to go that deep into the issue. We're just concerned with using strict science to address the issue, which is always preferable to, for instance, a United Nations forum, whereas we know nothing will get done. So we don't want a political solution for this. We want a rational, logical approach to it. There may not be a solution. There are some forms of question that the way they're phrased are unanswerable. And this would depend on syntax and, of course, meaning. What did you intend to say? Well, that's why we have definitions in science. So what we want to talk about today in science is species. What is a species? So I'll be covering these three major topics very briefly so that we're all on the same page for these very extraordinarily fascinating vectors. I do deal with a wide range of science, and every scientist who feels so compelled is certainly doing the right thing by covering, if possible, an enormous range of science, perhaps even to full integration towards some integral solution to some rationally phrased question which may not have even been constructed yet because we're not sure what the question is. So this goes to deep philosophy. Of course it goes to philosophy and religion. Anything from the past, we must master it. That is called science. Anything from the past must be considered, including human, oral, and written information transmission, which can be argued, and I actually do argue, that is a form of evolution. In the strictest sense of evolution, is the evolution of science. You can see this evolution, the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, actually the Iron Age used to be in there. These terms have been superseded by Cenozoic, Paleozoic, Mesozoic. The order of time for geological extrapolation into the past has gone up orders of magnitude in the past 200 years. In the past 2 centuries, we now know a lot more about the structure of this earth and this earth ecology, and by direct implication, man's role on earth. Man's role on earth, not necessarily in the ecology. It appears that man is absolutely divorced and has no connection at all with this ecology. None. On a philosophical basis, not on a strict scientific basis, you can begin with the fact that humans are cellular organisms. So are every single organism on Earth, of which there are approximately 2 million classified species, separate locked codes that have no origin. None. However, there is a theory of how species speciated. That is recursive and must go back to an origin. First of all, of the cell. Because everything on Earth that is alive and makes the ecology plus man is cellular. Every cell has DNA. Specialized cells for all. Repeat, every single living creature has to have 2 kinds of DNA, and one of them contains the transmission sequence for every single characteristic of that species. We define species. If you don't know exactly what a species is, you cannot understand the theory or the objection to the theory. The theory has been effectively disproved. The theory of slow biological change has been blown out of the water. And what's been done now to make up for the lost time is to ignore the problem and forge on. There must be a motive. There is. Genetic splicing. And that is the solution to why we need to know about DNA. It is in order for governments to get huge military advantages over each other. Whichever military organization comes out on top in genetic splicing will certainly have an enormous, perhaps overwhelming advantage. It is currently surmised, that is guessed at high levels, China, mainland China, already has an army of cyborgs. These are not science fiction. They exist. You would expect that perhaps one government on Earth, perhaps the dominant one, would be surging ahead in military robots. Absolutely the cutting edge of military science right now, as well as poisons, bombs, and all sorts of destructive weaponry. Those are always, forever, at the top of the list in science. Armaments. And that's why we study genetics. Mathematically. It's to make soldiers. That's the only reason. So that's DNA. Did science learn anything about species and speciation from DNA? Yes. But you will never be told what it is. When I tell you what it is, it will be viciously denied. And a huge war will break out any time You say what I say, which is the truth. You're not allowed to say the truth, or you will be torn asunder. That's what's happening. That is science. That is biology. You will never learn anything from biology except what benefits the military-industrial complex, and nothing else matters except that. Weaponry. Same thing is true of the Hadron Colliders. Men have forgotten the electron and proton, given up on the photon, no further research, except to exploit the energy power force system of the universe to make bigger, more efficiently destructive bombs. That's the only reason for physics. Bombs! Try to deny that. Try to even state it as if it were a proposition worthy of consideration. Perhaps that's the reason we're in outer space. Because the government wants to be in outer space. What does that mean? Taboo. Lockdown. End of topic. Denial. How is the Earth doing? Let's be more specific. How is the world doing? Well, can we be more specific than that? How are the nations doing? We all know. There's no need to get morbid, sordid, and go into the details, either of historical time or present-day time. It's all the same. It just so happens, by coincidence, there's also a narrative, a story that is now considered superstition, because you can't prove what you're saying about your scriptures, your messages from your ancestors. Scientists shit on that now. They never used to do that. So science has really come a long way. Formal science, the way it's projected, you might ask some questions, keep it down. You conspiracy theorists, keep it down, let the professor finish his thought before you start texting mothership. Systematic denial of every single actual question that faces humanity is perfectly denied. And to do that in the face of universal human directive to finally understand these questions, there is distraction. There is deception, so that you'll never get back on track. Ever. Because that might undermine the government's money pipeline. You get even near that, or even mention it, you're on a list, you will be neutralized by force. Every time. So religion is in disfavor now. Gee, I wonder who is suppressing religion. Let's take a look at the map. Let's take a look at the map of history. How did this confrontation come about? Charles Darwin That's what you and I were taught. Brainwashed. Charles Darwin changed the course of science and human history? No, he didn't. But somebody did. What happened? You will never find out, and even though I've told you and am likely to tell you again, you will never believe me, and that's fine. You're a good scientist. So am I. You want a duel? You get to spout? So do I. So do I. So let's have some content here. I have something prepared for us. We will cover species and speciation very briefly to summarize everything we learned from Dr. Malik, a highly accredited scholar who wrote a book, Islam and Evolution, with a subheading, a subtitle, most worthy of regard. But today, I don't wish to go down that path, nor do I wish to go down the strict path of geometry. In order to get the fundamental force balance of the universe, which unlocks physics for believers, for people who know the narrative of humankind and fall on their faces in tears of supplication to heaven for forgiveness and guidance. If you never do that, for whatever reason, I have nothing to say to you ever again. And you can leave, go home, find your puppy and French kiss it, and then play your video games and your video music and rejoin the troops that are heading for slaughter. Israel is the top issue in science right now. I will go through these. There are about 25 or more of the top issues in science, starting at the top. The top 25 issues, beginning, let's start at the other end. Let's go up to the very top, which you now know is Israel, and everything that that word implies in the geopolitical configuration that is determining the fate of humankind now. It's Israel, whatever that might mean. That is the most important topic right now. So let's go to the other end of the list. Force. Hotly debated. Force? Yes. What would you say is force? Well, there's Newtonian force, and then there is non-Euclidean force, which defines the universal force balance from a universal frame of reference, which Einstein sought and did not find. The next one up, let's count these. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. So this is our countdown, the top 40 list of scientific topics for a full-grown, rational man. Number 40, force. Number 39, counting up, time. I have the geometric and mathematical definition of time. For the first time in science history. That is number 37, counting up. Number 36, the photonic, written as phi. The Greek letter phi is the photon. It's called that when it's a particle. At all other times, which is basically forever except for two instantaneities, it's not a particle, and we give that a new name, so we don't call it a wavicle. It's a photonic that has two states. That's number 36. 36, 37, that's number 37. Number 36, the circle. Number 35, the sphere. Number 34, the electron-proton relationship. Number 33, the magnetoforce-electroforce relationship. Number 32, the Einstein field equation, sometimes called the Einstein equation for space-time. The EFE, the definition of relativity in pseudo-hyperbolic mathematical convolution. Number 31, the Einstein energy equation. E over C equals MC. Correct? E over C, that is energy in proportion to light speed, equals energy times light speed. So energy times light speed is equal to mass. Mass times light speed equals energy divided by, which is incorrect way to say it. So energy in proportion to light speed is the same as the inverse proportionality of energy to mass. That is, light speed to mass. So light speed to mass is the reciprocal of light speed to energy. Energy divided by light speed is the same as energy times mass. Light speed times mass. So now you have two ways of thinking about it, because light speed is energy. That's what energy is. It's expressed in units of light speed. Max Planck discovered that. Number 30, speaking of Max Planck, one of the most tortured men I've ever heard of in the annals of mathematics or physics. That man led a life that you have to read, if for no other reason, to know what a real string of bad luck is like in a man's life. Number 29. Did we say number 30? We did not. Number 30 on the countdown list of the top 40 subjects in science right now, wavelength-frequency relationship. The simplest of which is 2 over 1, which is frequency 2, times the wavelength of frequency 2, which is the reciprocal 1 over 2, that multiplies to 1. So the inverse proportional relationship between wavelength, which is a misnomer, and time, which is a derivative, because frequency is measured as time. That relationship between time and wavelength, which is pseudospace, it's actually integral space in my geometry. Let's go to number 29. What geometry? 4D. That's not my geometry. That's what my geometry takes the place of, to put a preposition at the end of the sentence where it belongs. 4D is the linear systematic space, which is replaced by dual conjugal space that I discovered. So that's 29. What's 28? My goodness. How can it get better than this? Light speed. Light speed. Number 27. Zeno. Number 26. Conjugality. Number 25. Orthogonality. Well, you can guess 24. Polarity. Number 23. The quasar groups that are at the edge of what we can measure. Groups of quasars have been identified in the deepest space of the sky. And that is the new structure that's emerging from astrophysics. That's why you don't hear much about it. Quasar groups. Number 22, quasar. Number 21, the supermassive black hole. That's 21. What's number 20? Consciousness. 19, religion. 18, the surreal number tree. 17, binary number system. 16, fractions. 15, the sphere. 14, complex numbers, the complex number system. 13, the calculus. 12, mathematics. 11, maths. 10, arithmetic. 9, numbers. 8, the line. 7, galaxy clusters. 6, galaxies. 5, DNA. 4, the atom. 3, we're getting to the top, the universe. The universe is number 3. What could be above that? Humanity. Humankind. The human race. And number 1, Israel. And that's a brief list of the topics I try to cover, using a new geometry and a new approach to logic. It's actually a new form of logic, and I'd like to begin there, because it's logical to begin with the new logic system that was discovered in the 20th century. It is called, by Paul-Adrien Maurice Dirac, it is called by him, superposition. Superposition. What is that? It is a new form of logic. A new form of logic. It has other definitions as well. It has a physical definition. So now we're able, for the first time in human history, to change our logic system to more closely match that of the physical universe. We can adapt our minds to the actual shape and relationships in what we call the cosmos. The sum total of everything imaginable or beyond that constitutes the universe, which is a single object. So the universe is whatever is. That alone is the universe. Does it have Tinkerbell? Does it have leprechauns? Perhaps. We are ill-equipped to make that kind of a distinction at this moment. But the universe is whatever it can be thought to be, is what it is, everything. Irrational? One would expect that most of it would probably be irrational. Not true. It's completely rational. And so our number system should at least meet the requirement that it is 100% rational. I discovered that number system. It's called binary, so you could hardly say that I'm the first to discover it. Did I discover it? Let me ask you a question. What is the binary number system? What is it? It's what runs your computer. So it might help to know what it is that runs the logic system that projects the image that you're looking at on whatever device you're looking at. That image is generated by the binary number system. Do you think, perhaps, that number system might be the basis of mathematics itself? Well, I've proved that it is. So, that is a challenge. Do I intend it to be a challenge? Am I Samson with a do-rag tied around my blinded eyes, chained to the pillars of science, and now it's time for me to just one big yank? Down it comes! That is the default perception. Oh, no, you don't. Nobody touches the golden calf, the heifer. The red heifer is untouchable by a dirty, filthy serf. Did you take 8 years of calculus? Then shut the F up. We'll tell you what is reality with our numbers. Really? Your number system? Isn't that the linear logic system? It certainly is. Euclidean logic, which we've been using for over 2 millennia now. Just one kind of logic. Linear. You know why? It's because binary is interpreted as linear. Is it? Is binary linear? Yes or no? Is the binary number system part of the linear number system? Yes or no? Do you know the right answer? It's neither answer that I gave, although both answers are in the answer. But it's neither yes nor no. It's superpositional, and that is the only axiomatically correct way of exemplifying precisely what is superposition mathematically. It has a geometric form as well. The geometric form is called orthogonality, which is not polarity. Polarity is yes or no. It's 0 or 1. In circuit logic, it's on or off, which represents the number 0 and the number 1. And those are the two glyphs required for the binary number system. A sequence of binary glyph choices, on or off, Yes or no? True or false? That never works, except in strict mathematical Euclidean propositional logic, which is predicated on 0 and 1, which are linear numbers. They're linear numbers, and one of them is nullity, the absence of, and there's a blank. The absence of what? The absence undefined. The absence of undefinable anything. It's just sheer absence. So you're going to have to decide later. Absence of what? And the other number in the binary system is unity. Unity is in some strange way the opposite of nullity. Sound philosophical? That is also polarity. Polarity, which can be extended to an electrical concept of north and south. That's called a dipole, and that defines electromagnetism. It's always defined on a dipole, where one of them is infinite in, and the other one is infinite out, and they conjugate to reality. It's called electromagnetism, and it is the foundation of reality in a dynamic force-balance relationship between an in-force and an out-force. When you translate that to particle physics, you get the proton, which exhibits a clear in-force with respect to the electron, and the electron, which can't ever touch the proton. The electron cannot reach the proton. What does it do instead? The key word there is, it is doing something. What's the proton doing? It's exuding at least one force field. What is the electron doing? It's occupying the spherical intersection of two opposite force fields. Because the proton has two force fields, one that attracts the electron and the other that stops it in its tracks. It was going in, the electron was going in, it was heading right for the proton because of electrostatic force. A minus charge heads for a plus charge and then executes a perfect right angle in a spherical direction. When it reaches the force field surface, the electron changes state to a standing wave in a Lagrangian sphere that encircles the center of the protonic force field, which you now see is two force fields. The proton exudes two opposite force fields with respect to the electron. So is the electron in space? Yes and no. And that is your introduction to superpositional logic. And I will now show you the mathematics that defines the new logic system of spheric force pressure space, which is energy. Energy and space come into direct contact on a spherical surface. Space is expressed as a force field from the proton. Time, frequency, is time. Frequency That's not space. That's called temporal. You could say temporal space. That's where we begin to confuse ourselves. Is it a space? Yes. Is it a space? Is it a spatial space? No. What is it? It's an energy space that is conjugally non-physical. It's a non-physical space. And the proton does not occupy it. The proton occupies spatial space. Why do we say that? How do we know that? Because it's at the center. The proton, which never changes, except it does change state. But a proton is always a proton. But it can change from a neutron to a proton to a neutron to a proton to a neutron. But the processes are invert. And it's much easier for a neutron to turn into a proton than the other way around. The other way around is due to what is called the weak force, which is called one of the four fundamental forces. So now you need to know what the four fundamental forces are. Here's what you need to know about the four fundamental forces. 3 of them are subatomic, correct? And 1 of them is macro scale, and that one doesn't fit. So nobody is sure if gravity is a force. And physics is divided down the middle on this. Is gravity a force? If you can answer that question, you will have the unified field solution that all of science is trying to get right now. Is the unified field solution. You'll never get it because you don't know the right number system, the right mathematics, the correct algebra, the correct use of the calculus, the correct use of the complex number concept, the use of fractions, the use of binary, the use of two componency for a basic number system, proportionality, conjugality, spherical orthogonality. You're unacquainted with those terms and concepts, then you'll never get it. You'll be locked in the labyrinthine prison of linear mathematics till you drop dead, and so will your students. You'll never get the answer. Never! But if you do listen to Great Uncle Sam from Chico, who's writing his paper now, let's read from my paper. He, yes. Let's find my paper. It's got to be here somewhere. That's the moon. There's my paper. Now you can't read that. Although if you take a snapshot of it and then expand it, you could read it. Don't worry. That's why my voice still works. I'll read it to you. As soon as I find the right page. Because I write a lot. This is on species and speciation. This that we just scrolled through is the definition of the binary number system. So you know what it is at least. Because that really helps in science. Is to actually know what the words mean. Like species, speciation. Wouldn't it help to have definitions for those words? So here's the animal kingdom, Animalia. 239,000 species, I'm sorry. Genies. Genera. 239,000. That translates to millions of species for the animals alone. Then we go into families, subfamilies, orders, phyla. There are 30 recognized animal phyla. Well, can you name them? Well, here's a diagram showing you what they are. It starts out with chordata. Those are the chordate animals, the ones that have a spine. And way down the list, you find birds and mammals at the end. So mammals and birds are the main kinds of animals. A human in this classification system, if a human could be classified in this system, would be a mammal. So we are in there. We're mammals. As for the plants, there are 350,000 species of flowering plants. That's leaving out a lot. There are some plants that don't flower. So how many animals are there? There are about 2 to 3 million arthropods. What are arthropods, Professor? Well, two main groups, one that lives on land, called the insects, and one which lives under the water, crustaceans. They're all arthropods. One is a land dweller, the insects, and the other one is an undersea dweller, not an insect, but kind of the undersea version of the insect. That would be shrimp, crabs, lobsters, and probably a lot more. There's a lot of species on Earth. Now, of the mammals, about half of the mammals are rats and bats. They're rodents and bats. And bats are a big one. But rodents take the cake. So most of the mammals are either rodents or they're flying rodents. Bats, yeah. Halloween is coming up, by the way, and here's a breakdown of where humans are. So where do we fit? Where are humans in the evolutionary chain? What are we called? Well, I can answer that for you now, because I looked it up. We're from the superfamily Hominoideae. We're from the family Hominidae. We're from the subfamily Hominini. By the way, those are the gibbons and orangutans. We're from the tribe Hominini. I'm not making this up. Those are the gorillas. We're from the genus Homo. That's how it's written, the genus Homo. This would be, they're down to the chimpanzees now. And then we're the species Homo loquax. That's Tom Wolfe's term from the highly recommendable book on Darwin and Everett. Darwin and Wallace, called The Kingdom of Speech, where he gives us our true name and proves it. So he did write a book on science and he made a discovery. He basically got it from Noam Chomsky's mistake. Noam Chomsky bit the bullet. He bit the big one. He admitted it. I admire him for it. I've always liked Noam, but you got to see both sides of a man if you're not going to be taken to the cleaners when he starts doing his thing for the industry. Bias. So there are 3 human phenotypes. No longer is there diversification. The human is the only species in its genus, and it's the only creature that is a singleton. Singleton is a very well-developed term. I hope you can figure out what I mean by it. It's a once only. In hermeneutics, it's called a hapax legomena. One-time usage. All the other creatures, all the other cellular organisms have speciated. Man did not. However man got here, It was not by speciation. That is a fact. So where are the human phenotypes? Do all humans look alike? No. If you are really quasi-racist, are there races? It's not racist to say that there are races. It's racist to say that one race is superior to another. That has been disproved. So there's no such thing as racism. If it's persisting in anybody's mind, they are not scientists. Okay? They're not using their rational minds. But there are 3 races. When the word race is used phenotypically, you'd better understand that term, because I've explained it enough times. What is the difference between a genotype and a phenotype? Humans diversify phenotypically. It's part of the locked code. But humans diversify into 3 distinct races: white, black, and brown. Nobody has ever contested that. That's saying something, darling. There's white. They live north of the equator. There's black. They live south of the equator. And there's brown. Just barely north of the equator. All of them live in the same place on the globe, for Christ's sake. So what about the New World, the North America and South America? Exclusively brown. Exclusively brown. What about the Orientals? Emblematically, you could say the Chinese, but you're leaving out a lot. But the Orientals. They're brown, but not exactly. They're a certain shade of brown. And then there are the people on the other side of the Himalaya Mountains, the Himalayan range. On the other side, going east to west, on the east side of the Himalaya mountain range, are one kind of brown people. And on the other side are the original phenotype. The ones that got off the ark. And that has been proved. So if you're not religious, goody for effing you. But that's where people came from, not species. It's been proved we're not a species. But we do something that the animals don't do. We change our appearance like no animal does. Nothing on earth changes its face to be infinitely varied from a common, locked code that had no ancestor. None. It just appeared in the universe by effing magic. Now you have a controversy, the like of which has never been recorded in the annals of humankind. We're from monkeys. That's a European idea that came from England. You have to trust your source. Wallace, Alfred Russel Wallace, invented that idea. out of thin air with no proof. And there's never been any evidence at all to overturn the verdict of biological science after the discovery of recombinant DNA. Humans have a different kind of recombinant DNA. It has no ancestry. There is a lost link with the species. And mankind, the true race would be the race of man. We're a race because we're not a species. And we're not a genus. We're a kingdom. There's the kingdom of the plants. There's the kingdom of the animals. And there is the super kingdom that's not even part of the kingdom system, that is called mankind. Man, which had to, read my lips, man had to, perforce, come from two parents. Exactly two parents. That has been proved. So where do you get off just defying what physics has discovered? And now you say you're atheist. You're a liar. No, you're not. And if you try to tell me, and I will force it out of you, are you an atheist? Yes, you're a liar. No, you're not. And that's an hour. As for the geometry that unlocks the force balance system of the universe, discovered by my mentor, Ruđer Josip Bošković of Croatia, Hrvatska. On the Adriatic Sea, one of the more beautiful places I've ever seen from photographs. Almost got there, but went to Turkey instead. That's the roll of the dice. And that's an hour. Thank you for tuning in. I did not intend for this to be a rant. I hope sincerely that you did not think of this as a rant. By a certain classification, which I would condone offhand, I would say, personally, if I had to judge my own video, it sounded like a rant. Well, it wasn't, because I said so. I'm the professor. That was not a rant. And so, there's no homework in my class. But I want you to think. I want you to think about superpositional logic, which is what again? That the linear number system is embedded in the representable numbers. That is, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. The representable numbers are embedded in linear number space. But what I proved is the linear number space has a derivative number system which turns out to be more expressive than linear numbers because they get relationships built in, just like the complex numbers have a certain relationship between imaginary and real space. Well, in this case, you have two spaces, one of which is physical space, and the other is the space in which time exists, which is non-spatial because time has very little to do with space unless you believe Einstein, which is why I covered in such detail the Einstein field equation. For general relativity, space-time, yes, those are synonymous. Relativity, space-time, and pseudo-hyperbolic space is called the light cone. Well, the cone is an illegitimate object because it has a vertex, because your frame of reference is still zero. So we'll be back with more where the frame of reference is unity. That's called the binary number system. The center is not 0, it's 1. So stay tuned. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Means a lot to an old desert professor to know that someone's listening. Leave a comment if you feel like it. I'll answer any question. Don't worry about being rude.
If you feel like being rude,
I know the feeling.
just try to tone it down. Because this is science, where we're not emotional. But if you don't like what you heard, you're allowed to say so. I will respond. Kindly. Just don't be mean. That's all I ask. Keep looking up, and we'll be back with more about the universe and consciousness and reality so that you know. And you can solve your life equation. Without knowing the ancient records of man from Adam, Noach, Hanoch, Ibrahim, all of them, peace be upon them, all the way to the modern times, maybe you want to check out what the religious thinkers think without bias, without prejudice for once in your life, you can do that. You're free. If you're a scientist, you're not just free, you're courageous. You don't back down from anything. If you know, that's the time to speak. Just make sure that you know, and you hold your temper.